After an absolutely brutal Week 1 loss, Cleveland needed a win bad. But more than that, they needed a huge bounce back game from Deshaun Watson. Outside of just Watson stepping up, the Browns' run game needed improvement, a playmaker needed to emerge in the pass game, and the defensive side of the ball and the special teams needed to clean things up as well. The Dallas game was just abysmal, but against Jacksonville, there were a few guys who really showed out and took things to another level. I'm talking about Jordan Hicks, JOK, Grant Delpit, Deshaun Watson, as we mentioned, Jerry Jeudy, and Kevin Stefanski's performance as a play caller. Right out of the gate, the Browns' first defensive drive was a glimpse into what Trevor Lawrence and the Jags would be dealing with all day long. And as I mentioned, Grant Delpit, JOK, Jordan Hicks would be making splash plays and just consistent plays all day. But in this first drive, they all did it together. Jordan Hicks goes in and stalemates a pulling guard. Grant Delpit chases that pulling guard to replace him. And JOK evades that entire mess to go and make the play. Those three guys, to me, so far, and especially in this game, are the attitude and effort people. The guys who are willing to take on blocks. The guys who are going to go full force from whistle to whistle and not wait for somebody else to make the play. Once Cleveland gets the ball back, they open up the game with 7 offensive linemen. They have Zach Zinter as an off-ball tight end on the wing, and they just run lead toss to Deontay Foreman. Opening up the game this way with 7 offensive linemen and your 230, 240 pound running back gives you such a mental edge, because it just shows we are going to be coming at you today. You have to stop us, even if you know what we're doing. Even if we are going to load the box and you're going to load it back, you have to beat us. We are putting mass out there. We are putting tough ball carriers on the field. So you have to stop us. I thought that this opening play was a direct indicator that this day was going to be different. It gives Watson and the passing game so much more breathing room and just confidence to get out of the shadow of your own goalpost. So I love this. And this whole opening drive was just a masterpiece from Kevin Stefanski. Right away, Watson's first completion, look at his body language. He's up. His shoulders are up. He's not hunched forward. His head isn't down. He's positive. That is what he needs to get the momentum rolling. Last week, I pointed out that when he was throwing, his base was getting very wide. He was rotating down and through the ball, trying to get his whole body into every single throw. Here, though, he's poised. He's on his toes. He's standing tall. Another thing you're going to notice in this film is that Watson is moving linebackers and safeties with his head movement. He's no longer just staring down one guy like he was last week against the Cowboys. In this play, moves the linebacker off the spot, hits the slant coming in behind him. It's nothing crazy. It's not the wildest thing that a quarterback has ever done within a play to displace a player with his eyes and head movement, but it's something simple that should give you confidence in watching this team and Watson in general. There is direct improvement immediately from last week. At this point, the Browns are moving the ball, and then Stefanski decides he's going to open up the bag, go for a big screen play to get a chunk. And Ethan Posich is one block away from this being probably a 30 to 40 yard gain to Jerome Ford. It was an extremely well-timed play call. It was just one block away. Then Watson's next pass, a great throw to the corner to Elijah Moore out of the stack. He's no longer just looking for the quick check down to get out of pressure that isn't there. Watson's internal clock throughout this whole game and on this first drive was just so much better than what it was last week. If you watch the All-22 film, if you watch the recap from last week, he was moving himself into pressure. He was getting rid of the ball and not allowing plays to develop. But right here, out of the jump, it was looking much smoother. And another thing I love about this is Ken Dorsey on the sideline, pumped up that this team is moving the ball. Stefanski needs to be the stoic guy who's locked in because he's the one coaching the entire team. He's the one making the play calls. I like Ken Dorsey being that emotional juice to mix in for all these guys, to let them know like, hey, you are doing a good job. Let's keep this going. After this, Amari Cooper drops a slant ball. It's a little bit tight. It's a little close to his body, but I think that in his receivers room, they're going to tell him, you got to flip your hands up. You can't try and catch it like this passively. Get it off your body. Catch with your hands, trust your hands. This is something that Coop has struggled with, I think, a lot throughout his career in general. He can make the most outstanding catches, he can make the most improbable catches, but he drops the routine ones because of little things like hand placement. He lets the body come into his ball a little bit too much, especially on in-breaking routes and routes where he's returning back to the quarterback. Amari Cooper is going to be fine, but he just has to keep drilling these fundamentals so when the ball does come his way, he makes the play. So now on 2nd and 20, the vintage Deshaun Watson, the Deshaun Watson that the Browns gave up 3 picks and gave $230 million to, finally makes an appearance. And regardless of what happened last year, the 14 for 14 in the second half against the Ravens, the 297 yards against the Titans, I think that this was his best game. All things considered, considering everything that he was coming off of, the horrible game, the distractions off the field, what he did here looked like the most vintage Watson I've seen. The throws were in rhythm, he was comfortable, he was poised, but then in moments like this, when it's 2nd and 20, and then you get flushed out of the pocket, his eyes are working downfield, and then he places a ball where only Jeudy can catch it on Ronald Darby, a good corner. Watching it at first, I was just like, you know, that's a great play, we'll take it, but it seemed like a bit of a fluke and a bit of a bounce. When you watch it closer, that ball was just an inch away from being an interception. If it was thrown inside, Darby could have picked it. It was just far enough for Jeudy to get it. So it was really an exceptional throw and just a great sign to see Deshaun Watson and Jerry Jeudy's rapport starting to build. If this was last week against Dallas, Watson is throwing this to Akins in the flat rather than Jeudy on the sideline. He would have just said, okay, got to get the ball out, got to take what they're giving to me. And sometimes that is the right play. If it's quick game and you got to get the ball out and there's nothing else developing, yeah, take what they give you. But when you're passing up deeper plays that are going to be open and you just try and check it down to the flats and rush the ball out, you're really doing a disservice to your team. So great job on Watson, trusting himself that his receivers are going to get open, that his offensive line is going to block for him, and then ultimately improvising and making the play along the sidelines. Then as Cleveland is marching down the field and getting very close to scoring position, this next play happens. And this one was extremely subtle from Watson, but just another sign that that vintage Watson is making more and more appearances in game. I'm not sure if this was a design screen to Akins, but the fact that Posich and the guard releasing to the flats happened, it makes me think that it was. But right here, Trayvon Walker is stuck between rushing Deshaun Watson and going to guard Akins because he knows something is happening behind him. Watson is hanging back in the pocket and just gives this littlest pump fake to freeze Walker, make him jump back inside closer to him, give Akins a little bit of breathing room to clear up the throwing lane as well. And then it turns into a 10-15 yard gain. They get a first down and now they're in the red zone. Those little things, that little pump fake, that small moment is just exceptional quarterback on-field instincts to know that I've got this guy who's caught somewhere between guarding this screen and rushing me. I need to fake a throw to the middle to make him jump inside and open up that alleyway for Akins to make a dash down the sideline. Really great play. Something very subtle, but something that I noticed immediately watching that all 22 tight footage. Finally, they get to the goal line. Foreman almost fumbled, which sucks in that moment. You'd like to see him punch it in, but they spread out wide, get into empty. Watson scores. Very clean and simple. That whole opening drive from Stefanski was just masterfully called. The execution from the players on the field was phenomenal. It really was one of the best single drives that we've seen from Watson in his entire Browns tenure. And yes, people point to the fact that Those are the scripted plays, the 15 plays that you start out the game with, yada, yada, yada. Fact of the matter is that they weren't all on schedule. There were a couple times where he was flushed out, he had to make plays, and he did ultimately make them. He also just didn't try and whip the ball out to the guys in the flats, the checkdowns to the running backs. He tried to execute the plays in their totality. It was very promising. And throughout the whole game, we will see it as we go on in this video. But I think that there's a lot of signs pointing to the fact that this was a major step in the right direction. Now, we're not going to go through this game drive for drive, but there are some key highlight moments that I want to point out. As I mentioned in the intro, Jordan Hicks, JOK, and Grant Delpit really stood out to me in this game. And the reason why I'm so high on Delpit is for moments like this. Taking on a tight end who's coming out to seal you and capture the edge for his running back, but Delpit stalemates him. He stonewalls him and sets the edge for all the interior defenders to flow out and make the play on him. That is something that a lot of safeties would not do. I think he's one of the only safeties on Cleveland's roster who would be willing to take on a block like this from a guy who's 260 plus pounds. That to me is proof that Delpit is the right guy, and he is an emerging young star in this league. That is the dirty work that prevents big chunk plays from happening against your defense. Getting physical, taking on a guy who you know is going to punish you at the point of contact, but ultimately getting the job done and helping your team get a stop there. Then after the Jags get to the red zone and they're threatening the Browns, what was one of the big issues with this Browns defense last year? They were horrible in the red zone for the most part. They gave up a ton of touchdowns. They might have been one of the worst teams in the league if my memory is serving me correctly. But to me, and I don't have a ton of empirical evidence to support this, just my past football knowledge, I feel that linebacker play is what separates everything when you are tight in the red zone. You got to be able to stop the run. You have to be able to play great zones and man coverage when you're called upon to do so. And if you're lacking, it is an easy mismatch to try and point out when you're in those close quarters. I thought that with Taki and Anthony Walker last year, they were too slow. They weren't physical enough. They weren't threatening enough if they were blitzed. They weren't good enough in pass coverage. I think that you can't attribute all of the red zone scores to them. Absolutely not. But better linebacker play would have made those red zone numbers better last year. Now that Jordan Hicks is in the mix and he's working with JOK as his running mate, those two's ability in terms of speed and physicality is going to make it much harder for offenses to score at will in the red zone this year. Right here, JOK is setting the tone for what Cleveland's red zone defense is going to be this year. They are not last year's team. He shoots into the backfield, gets another tackle for loss, and gets everyone hyped up, ready to make a stop. Make them kick this field goal. Bend but don't break. Then Jordan Hicks playing that spy. Trevor Lawrence, a very mobile quarterback, making a run for the pylon. Not on Jordan Hicks's watch, man. The speed this guy plays with and the attitude, it is the missing piece in this defense. We have not had a Mike linebacker like this since DeQuell Jackson or Demario Davis before he was traded. I forget which one was last, but Jordan Hicks, I have a feeling, is going to turn out to be one of the pickups of the year for this team. This level of effort and execution within the Browns red zone defense was evident all day long, minus one drive where they got all of that yardage off of one play essentially. But if they can keep this up and do it against the good teams in the tight games, that will win them countless games, holding teams to field goals, not letting them score. Hicks was all over the field all day long. Delpit, JOK, this pass rush. Myles Garrett getting a huge moment when the Jags were threatening to score again later on, gets the strip sack. The red zone defense and the run defense on the road were the two big things that we needed to see Schwartz improve upon through two games, especially this second one. I'd say that the steps are working in the right direction. Now jumping back to offense, I want to talk on the Jerome Ford thing. When D'Onta Foreman is in the game, even if he gets no space, even if the offensive line doesn't effectively get him a hole to run through, he can still push the pile. That is why he is valuable. That is why since April, I've been saying that Foreman needs to be the feature back until Nick Chubb returns. It is more symbiotic in terms of what Cleveland does in the run game when you look at Foreman and Chubb versus Chubb and Ford. You still get the benefit of physicality. You still get the benefit of positive yardage, even when nothing is there. And we saw that all day with Foreman. I am fine with Deontay Foreman averaging 3 yards a carry because he's just pushing the pile forward a lot of the time when things aren't showing up. And because that style of running, that physical downhill at you style, winds up opening the door for Jerome Ford. Jerome Ford averaged 9 yards a carry. The bulk of that coming off of Stefanski's immaculate 4th and 1 call. However, he still had chunk runs. He had 7 carries for 64 yards. And that is because Jerome Ford is a change of pace contrast back. That is when he works his best. He is not a feature between the tackles guy who's going to grind stuff out. He needs to be run out of the shotgun. He needs to get those runs on 2nd and 10, moments where you are threatened to potentially pass, bringing him in as a receiving back. He's very capable in the pass game, but also with the ability to run. And he really showed out in those chances that he got running in those moments. However, when things are bad with Ford, they are so glaringly bad. The reason why Ford cannot be the feature guy is because he just misses too many great opportunities when he's carrying the ball. Look at this play here. The way it opens up, this is the kind of play that Nick Chubb runs for 20 plus yards on, the way it gets blocked up. After the play, Deshaun Watson sees it, knows that Ford didn't hit the whole way, and he's motioning like, hey dude, you gotta hit that. Stop trying to extend everything to the sidelines. Stop cutting back into the mess. Read the wide open hole and just hit that thing. Then there's other moments like this where Jerome Ford has a chance to pick up a first down. He just has to lower his shoulder and run through this guy at the first down marker. Yes, Jeudy misses the block. He needs to be better there, but Ford needs to run through this. He needs to punish this guy for trying to put his hands on him. Some people might say he's just too small, but there are a lot of small running backs who run more physical. Jerome Ford is not that guy. I do not like him in those make it or break it moments. But all that being said, he is a great piece. When Kevin Stefanski got into that 4th and 1, they had already run the sneak with Winston. I thought that this was the play call of the game, without a doubt. Giving Ford that ball and letting him run to open space, that is where he thrives. He had the fastest speed clocked by any ball carrier of the week. And it just goes to show he has a ton of utility within this offense. You can really use him as a fantastic gadget player. But when it's direct, straightforward smash mouth football, I don't really trust him. There were a lot of missed opportunities in this game. None bigger than this moment to Amari Cooper. It's just a ball he has to have. There's no way of saying it. Obviously, he knows he has to have it. We know he has to have it. He just didn't make the play. And it's another one of those instances where Coop sometimes just drops the easy ones. Moments like that are what keeps him from being mentioned in the same breath as guys like Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, even the tier 2 receivers who are exceptional. He doesn't get the respect that he deserves because he doesn't command it by his consistent on-field performances, and some of the bad drops are so glaring that they get burned into your mind and they overshadow his great ones. This was something that really would have picked up Watson, and I think this game would have been taken to another level. But it's also contributing to the fact that Jeudy is getting a lot more looks, and throughout this game, Amari Cooper was getting pushed downfield a lot to clear out everything underneath for guys like Jeudy, Elijah Moore, and David Bell. More missed opportunities come from Deshaun Watson, 3rd and 1. They run this read option. I think he kind of slips because he thinks that this defender moving out towards him is going to make the play. He just wants to get down and forward towards the line of scrimmage to get the first down. But if he stays on his feet and runs through contact, which I think will come with more confidence, this could be huge. Huge stuff. So the run game was better. Deontay Foreman set the tone. The defense was excellent, -1 drive and a handful of plays. Dustin Hopkins continues to be clutch. Alex Wright makes the play of the day after really the play of the day, Corey Bojorquez's punt. But this game really should have been put away much sooner. It should have been completely dominated by Cleveland if there weren't those missed opportunities, the drop balls, the endless barrage of penalties, which is the most concerning thing to me with this team right now. This game should have been in the 30s for Cleveland without a doubt. And this is the thing that this team needs to take for, and that Stefanski needs to harp on every single day. You will not beat the good teams if you play this way. You will not beat the Chiefs. You will not beat the Chargers. You might not beat the Steelers playing this way. You won't beat the Ravens. If you take 10 plus penalties, if you stagnate your drives, if you knock yourself out of field goal range, if you fumble the ball at the goal line, if you drop interceptions, that just keeps a team in the game. Look at what happened with the Chiefs. 4th and 16, and like clockwork, a moment comes up where they make a play. You want to talk about the refs? Whatever. It was pass interference in that moment in that Chiefs game. They will find a way to win if you let them in it. And that is the road to a Super Bowl. That is the road to a championship. You have to get through all of those guys, and you play them all this year. You play the Eagles. You play everyone who is a threat in the NFL. Another thing that we need to keep in mind and not overreact to is the fact that Deshaun Watson has been historically really good against the Jaguars. And the Jaguars are really struggling right now. Yes, the performance was solid, and that is why we've moved the Deshaun Watson doomsday clock from 90 seconds to 120. Catch that on the Optimistic Fan Club Live Sunday night and Wednesday night. But it can't stop there. The improvement can't stop there. The skill players have to keep improving, have to learn to stop dropping balls. We are leading or near the top of the league in drop passes right now. That can't happen with a quarterback who's trying to mend his on-field play. And altogether, it was just sloppy. It's still not clean football. It's not championship level football. It's not great playoff team level football. Right now, it's a lot of talent with better coaching across the board than 90% of the teams in the NFL who are just getting by through hitting field goals, playing good defense, and winning the possession and field positioning battle. If the Browns continue to play like this, that is a win against the bottom teams. It is a loss against the moderate to good ones. So let's not overreact positively or negatively and look to really take some great steps against the Giants this week. This is a tune-up game before the schedule gets very tough. However, you cannot look past these guys. They will come out and punch you in the mouth if you're not ready, if you serve up the ball, if you have a couple bad plays and the offense can't answer. You could be looking at 1-2 rather than 2-1. So make sure you join the Patreon. We're going to do a big film breakdown of this opponent, talk about what they need to do to win, how Watson can continue to improve, and where are the opportunities to separate against the Giants in this upcoming game. Because of the fact that the legal process is going to take a long time to develop with Watson, he is the guy for this season, and his leash will be as long as he allows it to be. I think that this performance was so promising that you just say, you got to roll with this guy no matter what, because when he is good, he can win you games. He can turn chicken salad out of chicken, you know what. And you don't turn your back on that because a guy might be more consistent. It was a huge bounce back game. It was a very big moment for him, but we also got to keep in mind the reason why we have the Deshaun Watson doomsday clock. The off-field distractions, as this develops, will continue to build. Will he be able to mitigate that and stay locked in? We don't really know yet, but just understand Cleveland will have contingency plans in place. So with that, we're going to get out of here. Thank you guys so much for watching. Like I mentioned, join the Patreon. We're trying to put a ton of stuff out there. Let me know in the comments if there's specific things you want to see, more film breakdowns, more game recaps. If you want game previews on Patreon, like I said, and be sure to hit the bell so you know when we are going live. Our live streams have been so fun this year. It has been so dope to just jump on Sunday nights after the games and then once midweek on a Wednesday or Thursday night to go on and just hang out, talk football, and just especially talk Browns. So thank you guys. We will see you in the next one. See you soon.